Hey, so in this tutorial I'm going to be talking about decal or splat textures inside of Unity and how they can be used to add some nice detail to your scene without using too much extra geometry or wasting a lot of space inside your tiling textures. So for instance, right here I have this big concrete wall. It's just a concrete default standard material that's tiled twice, and I have this diffuse or Albeo concrete texture, and then a normal map for that texture, just to give it this little bit of pitting to add a little bit more detail. So, what splat or decal textures are is basically a plane that has another texture on top of it that is using either a transparent or a transparent cutout style of approach, so that you can add extra little details to your surfaces without having to add in a ton of extra geometry, um, or trying to put this little bit of detail inside of this larger texture. It's much more efficient because then I can compress this texture, or if I need to tile this one more for more detail, I can absolutely do that. So splat textures are simply just on a plane or any other type of simple surface. You can move them around, you can duplicate them, change their size, and it breaks up the tiling pattern that you might have from tiling materials or tiling textures, to really just break up your scene and give them a little bit more detail without, again, the extra geometry, or affecting your default texture. So with my splat texture here, I'm using a couple, or my splat material rather, I'm using a couple different textures. So first off, I'm using a cutout type of material. So in order to use a cutout, inside of my diffuse channel, or inside my diffuse texture, in the alpha channel, I have this black and white texture that serves as a cutout. So all the area that is white will be visible, everything that's in black will be invisible inside of this texture. So, and then that just gets placed right here in the Albeo, and I can adjust the alpha cutoff if I want to refine it a little bit more. I absolutely can do that. I'm fine with it at the default though. Then on top of that, I'm using a normal map. So the normal map will distort some of that light, giving it that nice rough type of shape, like some busted concrete. This type of look is absolutely fine that I have right here. Gives, a decent amount of depth. It makes it look like there's some busted pieces within this wall. But I also added in a height map to give it just a little bit more depth, so that as our camera moves around, it feels like it has just a little bit more depth to that wall. And all the height map is just this black and white texture. So this middle gray doesn't distort the view in any way, but then black will push it in and white will push out the height of the geometry within the texture. So I have this nice little bit of fading in between these two edges, just to help that surface between the black and the gray ease into one another a little bit, so that it's not a hard line. It gives it a bit more of a slope inside of the texture transition. So those are this is how splat textures operate, and they're quick and dirty, and really easy to be able to add extra detail into your scene. So you can use a whole different variety of splat textures in different ways. So I'm just going to make a decal. Maybe somebody spray painted on the wall. They spray painted. There we go. this nuclear fallout symbol. And let's make that yellow. Actually, you know what? Doesn't really matter what color this is. But anyway, this will be our alpha. Because remember, we need to put this in our alpha channel in order to use it. So channels, new layer, and then just paste it right into our alpha. And then I'm actually just going to make this a solid color. Go with that yellow. I'll save that as a targa. Fallout sign. And make sure it's a 32-bit targa so that it keeps the alpha channel. I'll just bring that into Unity. And I'll create a new material. Fallout. Actually, yeah. I'll just create a brand new one. Fallout. And I'm going to duplicate one of these splat planes. Add my material to it, add my texture, and then under opaque, switch it to cutout. And I get my symbol, and I'm going to adjust this so it's a little shiny. And so you can actually stack some of these. You just got to make sure whichever one you want in the foreground or the background, you need to move these planes out just a little bit. So you try to keep them as close to the surface as possible, but depending on how much depth you want, you'll have to pop them out just a little bit. So see, now it looks like this symbol is painted on the wall, and that it's been damaged a little bit. And now to add a little bit more detail to my splat texture, I can actually add some secondary maps down here. So I'm going to take my clean concrete and put it in there, and I'm also going to take my concrete normal and add it in, so that we see in here I now have a little bit of pitting that's happening to my texture here, so it gives the appearance it's actually on the surface as opposed to just this big smooth graphic. So that adds a little bit more depth to it. So let's see if, there we go, if I increase the metal a little bit. Actually, I just darken that all together. There we go. So yeah, now I have a lot better feeling that that is actually painted on this surface. I'm just going to keep that lower. There we go. So, and all of that is done just with these simple planes and splat textures, or decal textures, so that we can add all this nice extra detail without having to do a lot of work or try to model it in, or have these big tiling, just massive textures with little bits of detail in them. We might lose a lot of that resolution. So splat textures are the way to go for just adding little bits of breakup to really add some nice detail to your levels and your environments. So hope this helps. If the video was useful, please like it. Please follow the channel as we keep making videos all about 3D, Unity, and game design to show you guys how this whole process works. Thanks.